is here on his way. He's from CANNA as well. I want Jenna, Drew, Nico, Jose, and Jordan. I'll let everybody introduce themselves. They know a little bit more about the company that they work for, so they can explain a little better.
Yep. So my name is Jordan Hanna. I am the lab director at Mother Labs. Basically, my main role is to take care of our tissue culture division and any technological advancements that we're going to make within our company.
Who's next? Nico?
I'm Nico Hache. I'm a director at Deloitte. I lead the horticultural team and cultivation services, and I consult in the industry in Canada.
Hi, Nico.
Hi, Drew.
How you doing?
Good.
Good. Oh, you want me to go?
Yeah.
So my name's Drew Emmer. I work for a company called Boveda. We're headquartered in Minnetonka, Minnesota. We make packs that keep cigars, guitars, and cannabis fresh.
My name is Jenna Agin. I'm a project manager and engineer for Neptune Wellness Solutions. We're part of the Mood Ring brand. I work alongside Jose in creating all of our products.
And I'm Jose Dominguez. I'm a cannabis sommelier and product manager at Neptune for Panache brand and Mood Ring brand. So I'm overseeing the quality at Neptune of the flowers we get in, the cans for the consumer, for biomass for extraction, and I develop product alongside with Jenna and the other engineer to make sure those product fits the consumer expectation rather than just regulation. So we make sure the quality is there and the consistency is there.
Okay. So I think maybe we go in a certain order because he's more on the growing end, and then Nico, actually we're sitting almost in the right places. Nico is more of the legalization end and the market, and then these guys are more the extraction, so end product, and you the quality of the end product. So maybe we start off with the guy from Mother Lab here and tell us a little bit more about what they do and tissue culture.
So Mother Labs, we are basically a cannabis nursery. So with us, we sell a variety of products: clones, tissue culture clones, teens, mums if necessary. So from my aspect, we are primarily focused on the tissue culture aspect. So any good grower knows you need to start with clean, healthy plant material. And tissue culture is essentially the best tool to start you off with that. If people aren't familiar with the tissue culture process, we are essentially growing the plants in a sterile, pathogen and pest-free environment. So giving the plant its best chance to grow and thrive once it's pulled out of that culture. So with the cannabis model, we are finding in this industry there is becoming an increasing amount of virus and viroids that are being detected. People are starting to look for these things. These are things not everyone's looked for. It's becoming more and more known that there's a problem. The only way to save these prized genetics is tissue culture. There is no other way to save it. And at Mother Labs, we've developed the technology to do that, and we are quite successful at doing this. There's, we run another system. We have a biobanking program. With that program, we're able to store your genetics long term. As everybody knows, grow space is precious. Bottom line, you have so much space that you can work with based on, obviously, cannabis regulations. So not everybody can sit and hold on to hundreds of genetics that they want to run. So that's where we come in. We can help hold on to that kind of stuff. There's, we have an international presence as well. So we have the ability to ship sterile and tissue culture to anywhere in the world, essentially. That's where it's been legalized. That's one of our other avenues that we run through. What else to say?
Can somebody bring their genetics to
Yes,
your
100%. So if you are,
yeah.
So if you have anything that you find you're going through your screening, your pathogen screening, you find your something's infected, you have powdery mildew, you have some sort of, you don't know if something's right with your plants, your mother stock, you're finding a decreased vigor in them. Tissue culture has the ability to fix all that. So at Mother Labs, we can take on anybody else's genetics, clean them up, take them right back out to them, and we can do it at a fairly fast turnaround. Right now, we're averaging about 3 to 4 months to get stuff back to you if it's just a simple cleanup. If there's a little bit more complexity, if there's a virus or a viroid, there is a little bit of a longer process. But we have developed some new technologies in-house that is rapidly changing that. If most people are looking at that 8-month, 14-month window, we're hitting that 6-month window right now.
So I'm just curious when you take a tissue culture back to life, about 3 to 4 months, and you have a full plant back, ready to.
So essentially, So what we can do is we can clean up the plant, remove all surface and internal contamination on that plant. And what we've been seeing is a rapid increase in vigor in that mum stock. So if we're sending as a genetic cleanup, it's going back to you as a clean mum, and it's almost like a seedling vigor. We've seen big increases in the plant's bud size. We've seen big increases in the plant's
immune
growth
system.
We've noticed,
everything.
we've seen these.
I think that.
Yeah.
So Nico,
What Nico?
you were just in Portugal. You were to tell us a little bit about what's happening in Portugal.
So, kind of to follow up on Jordan a little bit, we do a lot of operational assessments and improvement initiatives, and a lot of it comes back to genetics, and it's really interesting that Jordan and his company are doing what they're doing today. I've seen some of these viruses and viroids in multiple facilities, and it is an issue that has been dealt with in other horticulture crops in the past. I was fortunate enough to have visited Portugal just last week, and went to visit some facilities out there. It's a really interesting industry. They're just starting up out there, and I think it's almost like where we were quite a few years ago at that stage, where it was very exciting and explosive, and I think they're just about to hit that part. So I think there's lots of opportunities in Europe, starting in Portugal and then hitting the German market. Israel is getting very important. Also, all the way down to South Africa. There's lots happening there, and I know that Mother Labs does some work as well. So all good, and glad to be on the panel with Jordan and these folks.
Yeah. So I want to go next to you guys about the extraction. I don't know who wants to go first, but I'm gonna do a little cheat thing here on my phone because I'm getting some questions, maybe because we're live. So if anybody has any questions, so I can address it to you guys, or appropriate, right?
Well, I think I can go. A lot of my job, is not only to address the quality of the product that comes in for a process specific. It's and testing the product that goes out, but it's also to try to help the growers to kind of get through that market where sometimes product is oversaturated, depending on quality, batch sizes. We all seen a producer, and passionate producer produce 30 kilos of an amazing strain, but it's very hard to list 30 kilos in a province, right? So, since I come from the grow part of the industry, a lot of people know me from my grow reputation, and I've joined Neptune actually for that, to expand, my knowledge to, what's the retail market and everything around extraction, just to get fine-tuned a little bit around that. So, I'm able in my position to also help the producer to come up with a solution where if they don't have enough manpower, or they don't have enough infrastructure for, let's say, for an outdoor crop, how to not add unusable value to their product, like trimming or doing different things, depending on for what purpose you're going to sell your biomass. So we've seen a lot, like I said, we've seen a lot of oversupply. We've seen a lot of very good supply. A lot of people do good deals. We hear a lot about your genetics here and there, being always part of the flagship of the good producer. But ultimately, in that market, you really need to have an approach of commercialization. I used to say to everyone, really, cannabis legalization is actually cannabis industrialization. So it's really to. It's really specific to what you're going to intend to do with your biomass. So a lot of people, of course, wants to grow flowers because it's the best value for a high quality flowers. It's the best value for your operation, right? But then miscropped or crops that are under spec and stuff like this. Sometimes instead of trying to beat a dead horse, get rid of it, get with an extractor like us, or go ahead and create different product where you're gonna win more on that value than wasting time on that.
So you're like grower tech support for them to get the right product for what they want in the end, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So for example, flowers, we see a lot of people offering very good flowers, but they want super high price per gram for it. So I'm able to, work because I know the reality of the growers. I know really what they're passionate about. And, there's nothing wrong about selling only the top flowers for premium price, and I'll still buy the rest from you. I'll buy it for, of course, cheaper, but at least everyone has a premium into that whole line of added value. And when we find the right biomass and get really, okay, we're going to get that biomass for making hashish, that biomass for making ethanol extraction or full spectrum or CO2, or strictly flowers, then we end that to Jenna, which...
and then we go to...
Yeah. So, like Jose said, the legalization of cannabis really was the industrialization of it. And with that, there's so many machines on the market right now that all do the same thing. There's a billion machines that will distill. There's a billion machines that are CO2, butane, and ethanol. And you really have to weed through, what's best for what you want to make at the end. So, because they may all work, all of the extraction methods have their benefits to what you want to make in the end. And you have to utilize the quality of flower you have at your disposal. Because, you may have only bee buds and, you can't sell those just as flowers, but you might not want to make pre-rolls. So, if you want to look at an extraction, you have to know what your end product is before you pick that extraction. So it's a combination of looking at what you have in front of you and what you want your end goal to be to figure out how to get that extraction you want for the money you want it, and not investing in something that you're going to get one product that works sometimes if you happen to have the right biomass. It doesn't work other times if you don't have it.
I find that really interesting. I think, Jose, this is... I hate to ask questions on here.
No, go ahead. I have some for you later. I have some for you later.
It kind of falls into this inventory and quality in all aspects. The inventory oversupply, is it an issue of not growing to spec, and then a lot of that biomass, because is there a premium oversupply? Is what I'm asking, and because I don't think there is.
I don't think there's a premium oversupply. What we see, and sadly, I think the cannabis industry we're not gonna lie, it comes from the illegal market back in the days, and as everything, premium is always in small quantity, and the premium growers are often really passionate about their growth, so they do 4, 5, 6 strain. Exactly what he was saying. You shouldn't keep 100 mother in your in your grow room, right? So when you have producers of quality who are passionate, they're gonna go after. Oh, I'll do a 30 kilos there and a 30 kilo there and a 30 kilo there.
So you don't believe you can do a good premium at a higher scale?
I truly believe, but the passion of people wanting to go around with genetics, the latest one and stuff like this. People have aimed at smaller flower rooms a little bit because they wanted to make sure they had quality. Of course, you can grow it at scale, but there's a certain size where it's going to be too much to keep that quality going like this. I believe after 20 years of growing, I think there's always a maximum to what, because you need human attention in there. You cannot have only automation if you're after only quality. I think at some point it will have its limit. So, like I said, I don't think there's an oversupply of quality, but there's definitely a hard market to place that quality on the shelf. The farm gate opening for Ontario for stuff like this, I think it's going to be good, and I think it's going to appeal to a lot of people. But I also think that a lot of the market, are not crazy aficionado or passionate like us. A lot of people, for them, pot is pot, right? So I think there's so much things in that market. We see it, I think, with rosin, diamonds, and all those fancy concentrate. A lot of people do them at home. A lot of people know someone who does them, right? So it's.
But for somebody that
the
makes
passion
it,
thing,
for somebody that makes it, obviously the better biomass going into those finer products
100%.
makes a better product, right? So in the end, we should all focus on, regardless of where your market is and your end goal, whether it's premium dried flower or biomass, it should still be a consistent, productive, very refined process. And I think that's my point was, in the cannabis world, I don't think we are where in other horticulture world where the consistency is not there. I mean, I grew flowers, and if you weren't 95% accurate on your height of flower and the color and the density, that's it. You don't have a job. And we don't hit that. We don't hit that in cannabis today. 95% accuracy on premium every time. Bang on. Right?
Standardization is the issue, because when you have a nice product, you need to take it. A quality like this, you need to get it out consistently. And what's a little bit hard, I think, is it's a, cannabis is something like wine. It's something about flavor. It shouldn't be restricted. And right now, what you have is shelf space that are getting filled up. You just walk in an SQDC. I haven't been in stores a lot across Canada, but you walk in SQDC. I mean, there's up to the rafters. I mean, like, at some point, where are you going to put them, right? So you're almost lucky if the guy gets to try you, and if you like your product, right? No advertising, not much of a marketing, stuff like this. So when I say it's hard to place all those nice product on the shelf, it's a lot of work to get listing in each, in some of the province and in each province, right? For us,
in Ontario too, it's going to get harder and harder.
Oh yeah, 100%.
There's a lot of competition to get on the shelf there.
We're lucky because capsules and extractions and stuff that are more formulated are easier to put in 4 or 5 provinces at the time. But when you talk about quality, you almost have to go regional, and that's how cannabis used to be, right? It used to be, I went to Montreal and I found that crazy, Montreal chemo or something, and then you come in Toronto and you had that SR71 and whatever, right? So it's hard until it's not broken down into a kind of, I think, in smaller kind of market, a little bit like the farm gates and stuff like this, and still proximity is something, right? So.
I think since we're talking about quality, we should give our friend Drew a few
100%, because it's all related to
there you go.
The Bovedas.
We're closing the loop all the way to back.
That's awesome. So I just want to, you guys in Canada celebrated Thanksgiving a few weeks ago. Is that right? Wasn't your Canadian Thanksgiving recently?
Yeah, beginning of August.
And we're celebrating ours next week. And I just want to express my gratitude to my friend from CANNA and our friends at CANNA. We see each other at a lot of shows. Tremendous amount of gratitude to be together again, live and in person. It's the first show that we've had in Canada since we lost a colleague of ours that's a friend of yours.
Used to be a colleague of mine too.
Jed Walker passed away last January, and just a lot of emotion in coming together again and spending the time and having a chance to reconnect with wonderful people and talk about a wonderful plant and zero in on some common things that we have among us, and that is, I asked you if you loved cannabis, and your face lit up, and we're talking about love. We're talking about growing a plant effectively and efficiently, and finding a way to share it in a commercial setting. And we're super grateful to our Canadian neighbors for everything that they've done for the industry. You guys have done tremendous things for the industry because you're the first country of any scale to develop a cannabis marketplace, border to border. It's a big deal that you guys have gone through the experiment and taught us a lot about how to do it, and in some circumstances how not to do it. You've suffered a lot of pain recently with the oversupply and consolidation of different companies and so forth. Price compression. So what we've witnessed in the last few years, and it did get interrupted by COVID somewhat, we witnessed a shift in the narrative in the cannabis industry from access, how do I get medical cannabis, how do I participate in a adult consumption marketplace. It shifted from access to the idea of quality. And almost overnight, we saw people start talking about terpenes. And what's your favorite terpene, and how does this terpene affect this outcome? It's a whole different conversation about cannabis. Now, there's still a basic conversation going on, to your point, Jose, weed is weed. And people want to get the effect and the experience that they're used to getting, but there's a lot of new people coming into 100%. The cannabis world.
It's a generation thing, and every change of social change take generation. Just like alcohol and a lot of things, when they change something that has such a social impact, I think the knowledge come over the next generation and new people getting in, the younger one, starting to live with this. Yeah,
millennials have had a huge impact on the cannabis industry, and Gen Z is going to be even bigger. The opportunities that exist for us to teach people how to enjoy cannabis, find their way into a relationship with the plant, whether they're a home grower, and I'm really grateful as well that there's a ethic of home grow in Canada. I think the markets that are serious about preserving the culture of the plant allow people to grow for
100%,
personal consumption. I think it's really important. that we continue to support that, continue to fight for that as markets mature and as culture matures and more and more people get introduced to what this plant can do for them. So Boveda is excited to be here, be back with our friends, be connected. We didn't set out to be in the cannabis industry. We started 25 years ago taking care of cigars. And then the guitar industry came to us, and wooden instruments suffer greatly from environmental damage that happens when it's too dry, when you're storing a guitar or any kind of wooden instrument. We got involved in that industry. We discovered that people in cannabis were using our cigar humidity products in the black market or in the traditional market.
So those are cigars.
These are real cigars, yeah. But there's something amazing that's happened recently. For all for the basic level of cheap cannabis, inexpensive, easily accessible cannabis in whatever format, flower, extract, whatever. That's all well and good, but we're seeing more and more as markets mature, and we're involved in just about every cannabis market in the world. We're seeing more and more premium products identified and differentiated in the marketplace. It's fascinating that you could go to somebody that made a cannabis cigar, like Lobo's Cannagars. There's a variety of different Cannagar companies that'll sell for $50, $60, $100. There was a cigar that sold in Las Vegas for thousands of dollars.
Wow.
That's made out of premium cannabis.
We were just in Vegas buying some of these nice hand-rolled cigars.
Did you try it?
Yeah.
Was it good?
Amazing.
Seriously, tell me about the experience.
It's a little harsh in my opinion. Not harsh in like, it's what you would expect from a cigar. Let me put it that way.
It might have been too dry.
Well, it had the one.
There was a lot of stuff in there.
It was a lot, because it has the 2 grams of premium flour, and then it had a concentrate, and then it was rolled in keef.
Did you get just wrecked?
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, it was a group event. It was not you were not going to attack this on your own. That's for sure. This was like, let me find 5 friends, and we're going to try.
And it was a nice view because we were on the balcony of the Cosmo, looking at the Bellagio Fountains and stuff.
Oh, and the fountain went off, and you're tripping on.
But again, like I said, it's. There's definitely a quality market there for people who want to get, to spoil themselves and get something like this. But again, you see this and it's all enrolled, it's all handcrafted. It's so to spread that, let's say even across US is almost unthinkable. The same way you wouldn't be able probably to spread that across Canada, that same exact handcrafted thing across Canada. A lot of the quality comes with labor, and that's something that we know is getting rarer and rarer, right? So.
And with competition growing, price compression happening, that gets really hard to really hone in on that. I can definitely appreciate that. I'm in the mindset of commercialization, right? So I look at how to do that, and you're right. I mean, there's a certain point where there's a tipping scale.
Yeah, exactly. That's
of the hand manicured love that you give to that top premium.
So in this commercialization, to follow on Nico's point, there's an ethic that exists in the cannabis industry that sort of pushes back a little against some of the basic things in business where competition comes in and it gets nasty, and the cannabis business doesn't have much room for nasty. There's an underlying ethic of kindness and inclusion and generosity, and that we're all in this together.
We make friends.
That we're all in this together. So I hope that maintains. I think it will. I'm excited just getting to meet new friends on the panel tonight. This has been fun.
I have a question though for when it comes to commercialization. Like for Nico, probably like these guys are a pretty good running operation, and they keep going. These guys keep going. How come do I hear people shutting down and laying off 100 people at a time, and what's going on there? Is the big guys just buying up the small guys? What some people seem to be doing well and keep going, and then other big guys are just shutting the doors and reducing. And
it's kind of a big question, but I think you can sum it up in it's an operational cost. It's how they operate in their business, and because we see margins in the flower world, the profit margins are much smaller grams per square foot if we speak our language. We're talking dollars per square foot and kilograms per square foot in the vegetable world. Eric, you come from the vegetable and the flower world as well. Those margins are much smaller, and those people are able to operate. And they're able to be successful. They bring in automation, refined planning, productive planning. We used to grow crops for flowers where it was pre-sold before we put the seed in the dirt, and it had to be exactly what the client wants, and you reach that every time. In the cannabis world, it's a swing and a miss. I spend 4 months growing this crop, and then I'll figure out where to put it with my C of A. When my C of A comes in, then I can figure out it's A grade or B grade or C grade.
Grow for an intent.
That's right. Grow for an intent and
exactly.
plan it properly, and then once you have that process, then your big expense is labor. And once you're planned properly, then you can start managing your labor properly. We do a lot of assessments, and what we see is these giant labor spikes, and those are extremely expensive in temp labor. You end up hiring part-timers, this and that. There's ways to plan it properly. Multi-crop, I mean,
so like lean manufacturing practices.
all the things that we've seen in other industries are 100% applicable to our industry in cannabis. Automation we don't have a lot of automation. Trimmers are great. That's one piece of automation. We hand bomb every plant in every facility. Like you see people moving plants by hand. You don't see that in the flower world or in the big potted flower world, right?
It's all automated.
It's all automated.
What if you make 5 cents for a 4-inch pot?
Exactly, right? You're talking pennies to your little pots compared to dollars to the gram. And we're still not able to make it. So really, in the end, to answer your question, operational costs, looking at planning.
So it raises another question, though. What would, if you were to say, just off the top of your head, what would sustainable operating margin be for a cannabis producer today? You're bringing up a lot of details about the developmental aspect of the business, that it's not as sophisticated as it needs to be competitive and operationally efficient. But if you and I were to get into business, because you're a sharp guy and you probably have a lot of money, and I can sell just
I know
about
that.
anything. But what kind of operational margin would we have to have in order for this business to work?
Well, it depends. It comes back to Jose's comments earlier about knowing what market you're trying to get, right? Because if you're trying to go to the premium dried flower, if you want to do some extracts, if you want to hit value brand, if you want to be the king of pre-rolls, different plan. It's a different plan. It's a different facility. It's a different process. It's the mindset is the same. You still have, but knowing where you want to go. There's no build this facility. I'm going to grow the best weed. I'll figure out where to sell it. That's what everybody did, and that's what everybody's fighting right now.
And the more I think you see people joining from the old legacy market, where they used to say, oh, as soon as I have 10 pounds, it's already pre-sold. That's not happening. We have a lot of producers thinking, well, it's ready. Yeah, everyone has it ready, right? So at some point, I think either contract growing. We see a lot of the growers. Once they provided us within spec like a few batch, they just want to make sure that the next 6 months we'll take the product at the same constantly. But they have to come up with that standardization. If you talk about flowers, if you talk about extraction, I can have variants. There's so much things that are involved, let's say, in hashish making, from the watering, the climate, the genetics, the time of harvest, all the condition you do around, your hashish making, that you really need, I think, to grow for an intent or for a specific market. The same way that we use a certain extractor for a specific product for a certain market.
You don't put nice vine tomato grown in the greenhouse in the ketchup bottle.
So if you had to guess, I know this is totally speculative, but starting with the lab, what percentage of the clients that you have, the growers in Canada, are profitable?
From our aspect, so that's obviously something we don't always get information with.
Who doesn't?
If they have their genetics,
I'll ask our accountant and see what he's got to say about that. But from our aspect of things, we're seeing an ever increasing clientele. There's you were talking about a little bit of like having a specific goal with your product, and we're seeing more and more increase on clients coming in with a little bit of that product focused goal, and they're specifically picking genetics from us that are targeting those products.
Yeah.
It's like the cannabis industry is still we're kind of getting to that point where we're starting to run now, and I think a lot of people are just slowly figuring this out, and we're seeing some. I'd like to say we're seeing some great progress in some of these people. We're not just this idle company either. That just sits back and like, here's your plant, we'll deal with it. We actually will, as you're growing it out, we feed them information. We're trying to set up connections with people to buy the product at the end of the day. You mentioned earlier that we're a family in this group. We've got to take care of each other, keep this industry growing in this infant times.
If you do well, I'll do well.
Exactly.
And it's a sweet balance, even for the grower to say, there's a big trend about the fruity taste. Well, you always need to follow that trend, and having a place where you can have something and something that you're going to get another genetics after, and have that kind of complement to your goal of what you're trying to achieve is one of the best things, like you said, the best bonding you can do, because it's a sweet balance.
Yeah.
If you grow for flowers, might as well know if it's a good extraction strain, because if ever you're under spec, what are you going to do?
Exactly.
We've seen that multiple times. The guy gets you 25%, 26%. Oh, it fell down 19. All of a sudden, you can't list it anywhere. So it's I think genetic is a sweet balance within the market you're trying to get, and what if, right? Because what can happen will happen in cannabis, right?
Yeah. Well, I think it's really interesting how everybody's getting we were sort of randomly put together. And then I think that the function of CANNAtalk is actually bringing people together and learning from each other. And, if you talk about genetics and, certain genetics are better for extraction, it's interesting that Jose, you guys connect, if you're stuck with a product, it's not like you're going to just buy it because you guys want to have a certain product. So it's still really important to do the quality, that's where Boveda comes in. I don't know if you guys, you were saying like it has a short shelf life, really. So if a grower's finished with the product, and by the time it gets to you guys, and it takes a while, I mean, you're losing money during transportation, right?
Yeah, and we've seen that, multiple times where, with sometimes the oversupply, people kind of stick to their ground. They want to try to get, at least what they paid for the product.
So they hold on to it even
They hold
longer.
on, but in chemistry, when you get it, kill it. That's what they say. If you have a biomass that's older, when you get it, kill it, extract it, stabilize it, make an extract. So it's, holding on to it and looking at different options. It's always good to look at option, but in this real world of cannabis, looking at an option is a month away, right? The time you do something now is going to be done by the end of the month, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So no matter how fast you want to go or want to try, so every time that cannabis age, month per month, and it keeps going. We've seen people like, obviously almost giving us away some of old material because it costs more to destroy it, right? So at some point it's you're like, okay, make sure that your production schedule are getting better, because that's where we see price contraction. There's so much product. But again, quality, it's, I think, like I said, I think it's really about how can you make a smaller offering and be more regional and make that kind of synergy that we have all year. Like, we all come from different areas, and if I go there, you're gonna have a weed for me that's gonna be different than the weed that we get, and get that back with the quality for the people of the market, right? So,
But do you guys do commercial stuff at Boveda, like large for large storage as well?
Yeah, there's different sizes of our packs, from retail packaging sizes all the way up to bulk storage. So we're into the 10 and 20 pound range as far as stuff that's being set aside for weeks at a time, months at a time. Typically, we believe you could enjoy cannabis in the way that it's intended to be enjoyed if you were to consume it within 4 to 6 weeks of the time that it's cured. And in Canada, in particular, if you were to go through the Ontario system to get into the retail store, those lag times can be really long. So you can be months and months at a time. And it just gives a grower or a brand manager an opportunity to be more confident that they're going to be delivering the kind of quality that they want those consumers to have, so that they may go the extra mile and buy the brand again. You'd like to have a repeat customer.
It's like an insurance, because we obviously use Boveda as in our facility. Most of the people who understood that reality, that if you have an amazing product, it might take months before you're able to put it on the shelf. That's, for me, it's Boveda's our insurance policies, right? You put that, you make sure you monitor them, you make frequent checkup, and you maintain that quality where it should be.
Yeah, and we run into conversations with brands where, from an operational sustainability perspective, they go, look, we've invested all these inputs all the way to harvest, and now we're at a place where we're trying to get to market and get our revenue, and we can't afford the extra 15 or 20 cents to add to the cost of goods sold. So for the consumer, a lot of our business is consumer business. People buy our product that it may not be in every package in the Canadian marketplace, but the consumer can certainly access it. You, as a lover of cannabis flower, may be okay with adding a 50 cent or $1 to your total basket, whereas the operator would not necessarily see fit to add 20 cents.
Your product is in 4 out of 5 packages that I see on the shelf. So
it's awesome. Somebody's doing a good job. That's great.
Again, if you add the right value to your product, don't trim product that's not going to make it to the spec or is not going to please to your consumer. But to the point of Nico, if you have the right production planning and the right cost around that thing, that shouldn't be an issue for the producer.
Right.
So, personally, when I go in gardens, I see a lot of, stretching and a lot of the bottom of the plant is empty and stuff like this. This is all stuff you paid for, you paid for electricity, you paid for nutrient. So, at some point that calculation of gram per square foot or gram per square meters or stuff like this has to be really understood and make sure it's profitable so you can add those value to your product. Because that's where we are an added value. We don't grow ourselves at Neptune, but we're able to find that one that need those added value and get it out there for the people.
We should probably encourage everybody to go out and buy cannabis as Christmas gifts this year. Help the marketplace. Take care of your aunts,
Edibles
your
for
uncles.
grandma.
Introduce grandma and
Edibles
grandpa
for
to some
That's a
good
great
bud,
idea. I
some
think we should
beautiful
all do
extracts.
that.
I'll sit around and spark it up around the Christmas tree this year.
A true Hempy New Year.
Hempy New Year. Hempy New Year. That's good. I love that.
So, but I know that the video is going to be online at the Grower Source, and then people can ask questions underneath, just like on a social media platform. And we'll go through all of them. And then if you guys don't mind, if there's a specific question to the business that you're in, follow up with them. We can follow up with them and answer those questions.
It's all about caring and sharing, right?
Yeah, caring
love to
and
talk
sharing.
about it.
Eric, thank you for being such a wonderful human being and always showing up at these shows and being so interested and being so friendly.
Thanks, Drew.
Makes
It's
a big
compliment.
difference.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So I guess we're going to wrap it up. And thank you to everybody for
You got to
watching.
get a double shot of